Alright, in the last video we were talking with George, who had sent in a pretty lengthy video ramble about how things are not working out for him and is having difficulty finding his purpose or what it is he needs to be doing. We had discussed that a lot of what he's going through is due to his Saturn return. Now, some people thought I was coming down on George a bit harshly, which I kind of was at the beginning, but that's only because he eliminated R.S.D. Tyler's videos right in his opening statement, but yet also says he don't know what it is he should be doing. And anyone that comes to me saying they don't know what it is they should be doing is not really in a position to know what's going to work for them. That's essentially what they're saying, is it not? But since the last video, I've been over to George's YouTube channel and watched a video of his where he says I inspired him from the Secrets of Wealth bonus audio, where I talk about doing the opposite of what you would normally do when all else fails, just like George Costanza in Seinfeld. And George was taking that advice. He got excited about it. He got some momentum. Because if you remember, I was talking about how he needs to take action. He just really needs to get moving. And in this video, he was talking about how he went up to a lady in a parked car that he was attracted to and walked up, knocked on her window. She rolled it down, and he said something to the effect of, "Excuse me, I just wanted to tell you that I think you're a beautiful woman." I mean, my God, George, the set of balls on you, brother. I mean, George, you're not lacking in courage. That took tremendous courage. It took a lot of courage for you to send in the video that you did to me. And if you have the courage to do that, you have the courage to do anything. And she dug it. You know, the woman smiled and started playing, with her hair, doing the little hair twist, which I'm not sure how good George is with social cues. He may not have the reference experiences to know that that is an indicator of interest. That means she liked you. Because women like courage. Courage and confidence. You have the courage, you just need to work on your confidence, because when the pressure was on, you bailed. So George kind of walked away at that point. And so now that you know that your default tendency is to bail when the pressure is on, do the opposite and hang in there. Because, who knows where that would have led. And she was into you. And you have to make that your philosophy, to hang in there, to take action and hang in there and finish what you start. Because, I got excited for you in that video. I was smiling. And so I was telling my girlfriend about George, and she's like, I got to see this guy. And so I showed you to her, and she's like, he's a good-looking guy. For all the problems that you have, she didn't know what to expect. But she's like, he's a good-looking guy. And so it's not your looks and any of these other reasons that you think that are holding you back. It's simply the fact that you need to take action and finish what you start. Just that one action, just by taking that one step of approaching her and telling her that, you did get a tangible result. You got an indicator of interest. I'm sure you made her day, because most guys do not have the courage to do something like that. Most guys will approach women when they're nice and drunk in the bar. So I was very, very impressed with that kind of progress just by taking that step, but you got to stick with it. You got to keep it up and continue to take action and hang in there when the pressure is on. I understand that you were nervous and your heart was racing, but you felt alive. You got that rush. And if you can hang in there when the pressure's on, that's going to help build your confidence. Any of these excuses in your mind of what if this happens, what if that happens, and fear of the unknown, in your position, you need to be more afraid of what if I don't do this? What if I don't hang in there? What if I waste more time by not taking action? So you need to switch the polarity of those type of thoughts that keep you from taking action into taking action. But needless to say, I'm very, very proud of what George has been able to accomplish thus far and the amount of courage that he has, because the approach is typically the most difficult part. Because believe it or not, most men are terrified to approach women unless they have a little liquid courage backing them up, or if they're one of those naturals that have always been good with women. But George has the courage thing down. The courage to take a risk is very attractive to women. So what we need to do is take a look at George's chart and see where his sticking points are. So let's get into it. Alright, so George has told me that 5 o'clock p.m. is his birth time, as close as he can figure. So that's what we're going to go with, and the chart I'm going to be doing is going to be Western Tropical. I know a lot of people send me in questions about whether I use sidereal or tropical. I use tropical. Not that there's some merit to sidereal, just as there's merit to progress charts and the like. But I always use tropical as the default. If it's not broke, don't fix it. And so the first thing that we look at in the chart is the placement of the ascendant, sun, and moon. And immediately we could see that George is a Libra ascendant with a Gemini sun and a Piscean moon. And I could think of no 3 signs that are going to be worse for decision making. No wonder you're all over the place. With the Libra ascendant, you know, the scales are always trying to balance. These are people who are like, well, on this hand we have this, but on the other hand, and they're always weighing the options. Gemini, the twins. One day you could be one twin, and then the next day you could be the other twin. It's a mutable sign, so it goes back and forth. It's always moving around and adapting to situations as they happen. Both Libra and Gemini are air signs, always lost in thought. A whole lot of thinking going on, but there's no fire to put it into action. And the Piscean moon. What can be said about Pisces that hasn't already been said? Represented by 2 fish with their tails tied together, one going one direction and the other going the other direction, being pulled in 2 different directions. And this is the sign that is giving you a lot of your issues when it comes to decision making and giving up on things, not finishing what you began. Now each sign is divided up into 30 degrees, and each 10 degrees is a decan, and the minor arcana of the tarot is assigned to each decan. We can see that your moon in Pisces is placed at 9 degrees, and the first 10 degrees of the sign of Pisces corresponds to the 8 of Cups. And when you look at the 8 of Cups, you can see somebody walking away from a stack of cups, an incomplete stack of cups. It appears to be nighttime with the moon overhead, symbolizing that you are led by mood. You're just not in the mood to finish something, so you never finish it. Well, I just don't feel like it. Pisces is a water sign, therefore you're led by emotions. In your chart so far we have air, and a lot of it, because you don't just have the sun in Gemini, you have Mercury in Gemini as well, and Mars right on the cusp of Gemini and Cancer. So a whole lot of thought and feeling. But this placement of moon in Pisces is important. Now in my chart, I have a Gemini moon and a Pisces ascendant. And my ascendant is placed at 1 degrees Pisces, so it's within that same decan. And yes, that was a huge problem for me, was starting a lot of projects and never finishing them. Now, I'm a Capricorn sun, so I had some earth to round that out. But even still, with those 2 signs together, I know what it's like to have your mind run away with you. If I don't deliberately focus on what I'm doing, I mean 3, 4 hours can go by and I'm like, what the hell just happened? As my mind runs off to this mix of thought and daydream, which can be good for a lot of magical work and messages from the subconscious, but not for getting anything done. The only way that you can actually accomplish something is to finish what you began. I mean, that should be common sense, right? And the way that I was finally able to get a handle on that was getting into magic and doing my grounding exercises, and also giving me little quip reminders, such as always move the ball forward, just do it, to rip off Nike, just do it, just get it done. Because with this placement of Pisces, you're not going to feel like it. And so I have to force myself. The thing is if you do finish what you began with this placement, you can have a masterpiece. You can see by the card they give up right before they're finished a lot of times. And so yes, right off the bat, the ability to make a decision and the ability to finish what you begin is what you need. And you told me in your video that that was part of your problem. See, you already know what the issue is. I'm not telling you anything that you don't already know inside. We all know the answers deep within. And it's this moon placement in Pisces that you identify with. Because remember, your YouTube channel name is Forever Alone Feels. What are keywords for Pisces? Solitude. It's a water sign, so it's emotion. You get a case of the feels. You say you enjoy going off alone, not being around anybody. Pisces is all about solitude. The moon is symbolic of our subconscious. And people are ruled by the subconscious, the emotional mind. And so it's something you're going to have to get a handle on. Like I said, if I do not focus and concentrate on what it is I'm doing, my mind will run all over the place like a little child. And I have to say, no, 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 get back here. And it doesn't like it at all. It wants to run around and play. And I kind of almost have to bargain with it. No, I have to get my work done first, and then in the evening when I have a little extra time to myself, then I can daydream. Then I can think about things. Then you can run off to Never Never Land. Then I could spend time alone to myself. When it comes to making decisions, you're going to have to get in the habit of making quick decisions and sticking with them. Because of these signs, especially your moon in Pisces, is going to pull you in every direction. You have to make a decision and stick with it. Finish what you start. I like what Ty Lopez says about making decisions, and that's if you're 30% sure, then go ahead and do it. So if you're 30% sure that you're going to regret it for the rest of the day if you don't do it, go ahead and do it. Why 30%? Because most people wait till they're 100% sure and they never do anything because they're never 100% sure. We already know you have the courage to take a risk. So this should be a good guideline for you. The only decision that you need to make is to take action. And that should be your starting point. That the only decision that you need to make is to either take action or to not take action. And for you, it's take action almost every time. Why? Because there's no fire here. And so you're going to have to make up for it. So let's talk about some of the other planet placements in your chart. We know that Saturn is in your first house, in the sign of Scorpio. Now we said that Saturn is all about responsibility, and that's true, but also in the chart it's going to represent obstacles, limitations, pessimism. It's like a big old sign that says no. What is the sign of Scorpio? Well, it's the sign of transformation, sex, death, and transformation. So with Saturn here, you get no sex, no transformation. You haven't transformed yourself. And being in the first house, which is all about the self, it shows that you have self-doubt, a lack of confidence. Remember, courage and confidence are not quite the same. You're very hard on yourself. This is the placement that is making you feel useless. The placement that's keeping you a virgin. Well, partially. It's not helping, because it's that pessimistic attitude that you have and self-doubt, lack of confidence, that is keeping you from that, along with the inability to make a decision and the default disposition of not taking action, unless you force yourself to. Now, you could be pessimistic also about your looks, your weight, but it's the attitude that's the problem, not the actual reality of the situation. See, the key to working with Saturn is to take responsibility. That's why Saturn is all about it. To start taking responsibility for yourself. Instead of not doing something because you feel like you're not good enough to do it, you're going to have to step up and take responsibility and get the job done. Now, we just said you were experiencing your Saturn return, and we can see this in the chart as well. It is still considered conjunct by just 1 degree. So Saturn is now moving away from your natal Saturn. And so the pressure should ease for a while. Now let's take a look at Jupiter. Jupiter is placed in Aquarius in your 4th house. And the 4th house is all about home, safety, security. And Jupiter is all about expansion, growing. And Aquarius is, well, Aquarius can be a bit odd, eccentric, considered out of the norm. And this is a placement that is kind of keeping you at home living with your parents. One of them, because you feel comfortable at home. If we look to Mars, right on the cusp of Cancer, Cancer is about safety, security, and the home too. Cancer and the 4th house are pretty much the same thing. It is Cancer's natal house. And so your Mars motivation is kind of in between Cancer and Gemini, and will usually default to the sign or house that's on the cusp of. So in this case, Cancer, there is no motivation to leave home, especially with Jupiter in the 4th house. The good news, though, is that no matter where you live, no matter where you call home, you're going to have that sense of security. But you're also going to have to make it a point to leave the house once in a while. You feel best at home. If you're going to want to meet a girl, you have to go out and actually meet a girl and get out of the house. Not just to go to work, not just to go sit under a tree and be by yourself, but you're going to have to go out and get things done. And my advice would be to go out and find yourself a small little apartment, whatever you can afford, even if it's just a tiny 1-bedroom or a tiny studio, as your starting base. Because I'm sure you don't want to be a burden to your parents. I'm sure that's not your intent. And you're going to want to do it before transit Saturn reaches your natal Jupiter and you start feeling the effects of your Saturn square, which will not only be about yourself, but also about your home situation as well, while it's transiting that 4th house of yours. Now we get to a bit of good news. You have Venus in the 7th house, in the sign of Taurus at that, and very close to your descendant. There is a woman out there for you, George. And according to this, she's going to be quite a looker, too. The Taurus is all about beauty. It's Venus's sign. The 7th house is about relationships, marriage. You're going to get the girl at some point. According to this, it's inevitable. So what's standing in the way? Well, we see that the only negative aspect to Venus in this position is the opposition to Pluto in the sign of Scorpio, of which it's co-ruler of. Pluto is a very intense planet. In fact, you can call it the planet of extremes. So you can be a very intimidating person or a very intense person. And you're going to have to watch it that when you get that girl, that you don't become like overly possessive and jealous, as Pluto is known to do. Anyone that I've seen that has Pluto that close to their ascendant is a very, very controlling person. One of my buddy's girlfriends has this placement, and we're always joking that, she never lets him off the leash, so to speak. Pluto in Scorpio likes to be behind the scenes, that which is not shown, so maybe you're just not taking action enough. The thing about Pluto here is it can go across one of two ways. You can either come across as very attractive with an intense sexuality, or you can come across as very creepy. So you're going to have to work on not coming across as creepy. The real good news about this placement, though, is Pluto is related to Scorpio, and both of them are about transformation. And being in your first house, you have the ability, and a very strong one at that, to transform yourself into who you want to be. And so that Pluto isn't standing in the way of you finding your love. But again, once you do find her, you're going to have to be very, very mindful to not be too controlling, because your Pluto and Venus are in direct opposition. To not be overwhelmingly jealous, clingy, and needy, because that's the fastest way to lose somebody. And you're going to have to take my word for it and everyone else's word for it, since you don't have the reference experiences. Actually, a relationship is exactly what you need to help ground you, being that Venus is in Taurus. You just have to make sure that it doesn't immobilize you, as Taurus is fixed Earth. This placement also means that you will highly value your relationship, as Taurus is a sign of our values. So again, you have to make sure that Pluto opposition doesn't become too possessive. But I would say that overall, the main problem area that you're having within your chart is that Piscean moon. And even more so now that we can see that Neptune is conjunct your moon in Pisces. Neptune is co-ruler of Pisces, which makes that Piscean tendency for solitude and tendency to give up, not make a decision, even stronger. And you're going to have to resist that. And you're going to have to start taking action and accomplishing things so that you don't feel useless. Revel in the small gains and victories that you get as you work your way up, which will help combat any feelings of suicide and hopelessness, despair, because this Neptune placement isn't helping any of that. If you remember when we did the Robin Williams video, and I talked about how suicide is always related to Pisces and or Neptune, the co-ruler of Pisces. And so you do need to be aware that you have that kind of placement. You're going to have to start looking at your moon and your moodiness, those feels, as a bratty child that likes to pout when it doesn't get its way, and take responsibility, be the adult that reins in that child and disciplines it as necessary. By following the advice that I'm giving you, you can start to bring balance to an otherwise unbalanced chart, which is nothing more than your energetic makeup. By forcing yourself to take action, to finish what you start, to take responsibility, to discipline yourself, you're bringing more fire and earth to help balance out those air and water qualities, which should appeal to your Libra ascendant, because Libra is all about bringing balance. That's what it wants to do. Now, when it comes to finding our purpose, it really is up to us to find our own path. It's not my place to tell you what you should be doing, but just taking a look at your chart and seeing what you would be well suited for, the thing that immediately stands out for me, as ironic as it is marriage counselor. Maybe it's because you could appreciate a relationship more. But with a Libra ascendant, you have that need to always try to balance things out. You have your Mars between the signs of home matters, domestic issues, and communication. Your Venus is in the house of partnerships, relationships, marriage. And Venus shows not only what you love to do, but what you will be loved for. Everybody loves Venus. I've said it before, I don't get a lot of hate mail on this channel. I'll get a knucklehead every now and then, but for the most part, I receive an overwhelming amount of gratitude from people, due in part to my Venus being in Sagittarius in the 9th house of teaching, religion, philosophy. And you have that super intuitive placement of Moon in Pisces. So you have the Mars and the Venus placements for it, and very strong communication skills with Sun and Mercury being in Gemini. But again, you have to help yourself before you can help others, before you can provide that valuable service to others. Now, this isn't the only thing that you would be well suited for. It's just the thing that popped into my head immediately just looking at the chart. I mean, you could come up with things that are around the same kind of themes. You could be a divorce lawyer and it would fit just as well. So this is only meant as a suggestion. You really do have to find your own path. So that's my assessment of your chart as it pertains to your specific situation. And ramble. We've said that for you it's all about making a decision, sticking with it, completing your projects, finishing what you start, taking responsibility, taking action. Taking action also includes being mobile. Movement. You have to get your body moving. Hunkering down and sitting in one place is not going to do you any favors. I have a video on dealing with depression, and Elliot Hulse also talks about how the opposite of expression is depression. So if you're not moving your body enough, if you're not being expressive enough, and just sit around moping, that's going to cause depression. You cannot express yourself in that state. And eventually you get to that point where you just feel numb. So watching those videos, and you could do a search for Elliot Hulse depression, and you should find it fairly easily, can help. But also some kind of routine of exercise and keeping yourself moving, expressing yourself more. Not just your mind, but your body as well. We are expressive beings. If you're not doing that, then yeah, you can get to the point of feeling, what's the point? So you're going to have to be more active. Establish a routine and make it a priority to do so. But we have some other things that you can do. I'd really like you to read Napoleon Hill's Outwitting the Devil book. It's almost as if he wrote it specifically for you. It shows the dangers of just drifting through life, which leads to a downward spiral. Excellent book, and I can't recommend it highly enough to everyone, but especially you. Refrain from porn and masturbation. You say you're a virgin. I don't know what you're doing. I don't know if you're self-gratifying or not, but refrain from that, and it will make you more attractive as you accumulate masculine energy instead of wasting it. Don't know if this pertains to you, but I'm throwing it out there. It may also be a good idea to go see a clinical hypnotherapist. Hypnotherapy is used for more than just quitting smoking and losing weight. It could certainly assist you in being more confident, more outgoing, less nervous, more active, taking action, recognizing opportunities, making decisions, assuming more responsibility, finishing what you start, etc., etc. The possibilities are endless with this. And the reason I recommend a clinical hypnotherapist over self-hypnosis tapes, YouTube videos, and the like is that the hypnotherapist is there to help physically anchor the suggestions to you. Without that, you may have to listen to a self-hypnosis tape 40, 50 times before it gets through, which, coming from your background of giving up on things that you began, I think that may be a little too much for you right out of the gate. But a couple hypnotherapy sessions has the potential to turn you completely around. So it's definitely worth looking into. Just find one that's willing to work with you and create a script for you after telling them what it is you're going through and what it is you would like to achieve. And I know you said that you had the Secrets of Wealth course. Do that. Make sure you take action and do the things that are in that course. And I don't know which, if any, of the other courses that you have of mine, but if you don't, I'm going to give them to you absolutely free of charge. Words of Power and Manifesting Reality, if you don't already have them. If you do, then do the things that are in those courses. With Words of Power, I want you to pay attention to the sections on the will and the self-imposing jinx. And for Manifesting Reality, I want you to do that course in its entirety. Don't think it's all just airy-fairy nonsense, and give it the benefit of the doubt and do it. Start making sigils for the things that you want to accomplish, for the things that you want to change about yourself. Do sigils for taking action, for the opportunities to meet someone, etc. Because all you're doing in sigil magic is putting an instruction into your subconscious mind, of which yours is going to be highly susceptible to it because of that moon placement in Pisces. In fact, that placement of the moon in Pisces, and I didn't bring this up before, but I will now, is considered the most psychic of all the placements. And especially with Neptune conjunct your moon in Pisces, I mean, my God. My girlfriend has moon in Pisces, and, she just knows things. She'll get those intuitive feelings about things. So if you want to give your moon in Pisces something other to do than just run around going crazy and daydreaming all over the place, start working on something practical like sigil magic and start giving it some tasks and responsibilities to carry out, namely bringing those dreams into reality. And also, if you're doing the sigil magic, that's the only time it should be acceptable for you to masturbate for charging the sigil. My course don't go into a whole lot of that, but that's usually the default way that most people will charge their sigils, or at least the most well-known way. In any case, you should be doing sigil magic. All you need is a pen and a piece of paper. You don't have to do elaborate rituals, buy expensive tools, none of that. So it's the easiest thing to do. You held up the Franz Barden book and Liam Thomas Christopher's book, and I would agree that those are a little bit beyond your discipline level at this time. Until you start getting a handle on taking action, I would not recommend doing those courses, but I would recommend doing sigil magic. The only thing out of the Franz Barden books that I could recommend to you are the mental concentration exercises, which will help keep your mind from running all over the place, and the pore breathing, so that you can breathe more fire into you. You already got enough air and water. I wouldn't recommend earth because I don't want it to bog you down. All you need to do is add the fire and earth will happen. The results will happen. Now, because your Mars is caught between Cancer and Gemini, you could be one of those people that have success through internet dating sites or apps like Tinder, but I don't want that to be an excuse not to go out. I mean, if you meet somebody on Tinder, you still got to go out and follow up on that and take the opportunity as it presents itself to you. And finally, I know you don't want to hear it, but you should be watching RSD Tyler. Both his channel and RSD Free Tour. I don't know if you are aware of this, but he started out in a place very similar to where you are. And so learning what he did to help build his self-confidence and to start taking action, I think would be very, very beneficial to you. You don't have to binge watch, just watch a video a night. I really believe that that would help alleviate a lot of the self-loathing from your Saturn placement in the first house, which is tied to you living at home, by the way. As you can see, there is a square between Saturn in the first house and Jupiter in the fourth house. And I believe that if you take all of these recommendations and put them into practice, you're going to see your life begin to rapidly change for the better, especially with Pluto conjunct your ascendant as it is. Rapid transformation. And I will be checking up on you occasionally. I know where your channel is. So keep making me proud. I saw a great quote by Brian Tracy. It says, "We will always fulfill our own expectation of ourselves." And so if you want to get more, you have to expect more from yourself. You need to raise those expectations of yourself. Got to put away all those feelings of uselessness and meaninglessness and start to expect more. All of that stuff is in the past. What matters now is what you start doing today. A couple things before we go. The Marine that I told you about that had committed suicide, the eldest son of my girlfriend's good friend, has a GoFundMe page to help with his funeral expenses. So if you'd like to help his family with that and help ease the burden that's been placed upon them, I'm sure they would be more than appreciative, and I would be as well. You know, a lot of people think they're taking the easy way out, but the pain, grief, and burden that they leave behind on their loved ones is something that's not easily overcome. It's not something anyone wants to do to those who care about them. So anything at all to help these folks out would be appreciated, and I'll leave a link to that right up here. Also, I want to remind everyone that the Laws of Magic third cycle is going to begin on October 29th, and we are well into the sign-up period for that. I know many people have asked for it when it wasn't available, but now it is. So you'll want to take advantage of that. And lastly, I have a Twitter page now. So if you'd like to follow me on Twitter at Frater Xavier, you may do so. I wouldn't expect too much with that right away since I'm very new to the whole thing. But I am working on it. So until next time, get out there and make it happen. You can't have an adventure by staying home and playing it safe. Take care.